very fortunate that I've been able to find a niche for my work and to be successful. You really have to have a certain hunger and drive to kind of keep going. Some of the most exciting part of it is just that exposure to great artists at a young age and those people and having access. That was really exciting to witness.
This is the AM show with arts music lawyer, where ambition and motivation meet persistence and drive, where your wildest dreams come true and even the greatest possibilities become realities. Listen to people just like you who stay authentic to who they are and master the art of their craft. Are you sharing the art of you? The art of you is music to my ears. Stay focused, stay on track. Create a new lifestyle with ambition and motivation. The AM show. Lots of artists, entrepreneurs have big, big dreams. I'm sure they're in it because they love the craft, but they also have to think about making a living, right? And so I think it's important to touch a little bit on whatever you can share about how to negotiate the monetary aspect. Do you go into this thinking, okay, if I make at least this amount, I'll be okay, I'll be happy with it? Do you wait until they propose something? How do you go about that?
Well, it's a hard thing to, as an artist, to decide that that's what you're going to do to make a living. And I applaud so many people who want to do these things. I feel very fortunate that I've been able to find a niche for my work and to be successful. But it started out, it's like a very simply and making something and then finding a gallery that wanted to show my work and then selling the work. And it's like this snowballing effect that happens and the scale keeps increasing. I never really thought of myself as someone who was going to be running a business, but now I have 10 people working in my studio with me here in Brooklyn. And it's intense. You know, it's like a lot of stuff that's the unglamorous part of being an artist, reading contracts and doing like 401ks and insurance, all these things that are just like kind of mind numbing. I mean, we have to do them because that's part of like keep it going. And I think the thing that I'm really happy about is having an amazing team. I have a wonderful group of people that are surrounding me and helping support me in my work. And I couldn't do it without them. That's the thing I'm the most grateful for, is that ability to have this group that's so nimble and it's a combination of technology people and kind of business people, and it's a whole range. But it's been an interesting progression from me alone in my studio and to now the scale that we're operating on. But I think everyone has to find their own path. The advice I would give to young artists is find your allies. Being able to present your work is very important. Being able to talk about your work. And a lot of artists are maybe creative and articulate in a certain means, but maybe not another. And you may have to get out of your comfort zone to to make a website or do a podcast or do whatever you have to do to get out there and communicate and talk about your ideas. But the more you do that, I think the better it is. And that creates an audience. Gallery is also a very important relationship for any artist. Although there are other artists that work in the public realm, and that's a different mode. There are lots of ways of doing it. And I think now what's exciting is there's so many other ways of connecting with an audience. And I love the work that's happening out in the digital realm and just the ability for a creator to connect with their fans direct. And in general, I think being as independent as possible is important. You want to find allies and honor those relationships, but simultaneously sort of not waiting for it to happen. You really have to have a certain hunger and drive to kind of keep going. And I think there's a lot of vulnerability too when you're an artist, because you're putting your work out there. And I have a show that's opening on the 16th of March, and I'm feeling very sort of anxiety. I mean, I'm excited, but it's a birthing process. I'm creating all these works and I'm about to put them out into the public, and that's difficult. And you have to have get in the right headspace, put on your blinders, just stay focused on the work and do it, at the end of the day for you, not because you're trying to, for some critic or who this is going to, this person and that. You can't think like that. You just have to do it. So I think that's taking care of yourself. Part of it in the art world is the most important. I think whatever you have to do to do your work. So that means you have to get enough sleep. I mean, it's really basic things, but all that is tied to being able to operate in a really efficient way. So that's probably a very long answer.
No, but it's a good answer nonetheless. So I think something that's very unique about you is how you combine these different elements that you kind of touched on already. The coding, just the technology behind the lights, and then manifesting that according to your vision. How does all of that tie to your educational background? I know that sometimes artists, not everybody, but some artists think that, okay, I have this talent, I have this trade that I can translate into a business that can bypass education, right? So if you're a painter or a sculptor, you have this natural ability. Maybe schooling will fine tune that. You don't have to go through that. But for you, how do you tie your skill back to something that you did learn? Was it because it was self-taught, or was it through your formal education?
I loved growing up in El Paso and Juarez, but I have to say I didn't have access to a lot of the things that I had access to when I came to study on the East Coast. So that was something that it accelerated me a bunch of steps, having access to these art classes, theater, museums, all these things. And I would say in college, I had some amazing teachers that were wonderful, but I think some of my peers were unbelievable. I mean, the people I was with ended up being some incredible artists that I think that was some of the most exciting part of it, is just that exposure to great artists at a young age and those people and having access. That was really exciting to witness that. And then I think from the artist perspective, like what does it take to be an artist, like a really great artist, and seeing that work and how is that done as role models. And then the other part of what I do is very technical. I needed to learn about all these different tools of programming, virtual reality, all these things that I got exposed to at NYU. And I really had to find that program. And at that point, there was no job you could really get in the early 90s besides making like CD-ROMs or something for very little money. It was not what it is today. And I ended up out in Silicon Valley and working at a research lab. And eventually I realized, wow, I actually have skills. Like someone will pay me to do this on the technical side. So that was also kind of interesting. So it was just that you get little bits and pieces as you move along. I think today with things like we have the internet, we have the web, there's so much DIY culture that I think there's the ability to connect with communities that are doing really exciting things out in the world. And you don't need to be even in the same city when I was in school. But maybe if I had had that in El Paso growing up, that could have changed things. And that's what's exciting to me, to go home to Marfa. My mom lives in Marfa and we have a home there, and go to El Paso and see the creativity and the spirit of things happening and these things percolating. And it gives me great joy. And in some of my efforts, my passion and whatever I can do with organizations I'm involved with is trying to help young people get access to education, whether it's in art or technology and all those things I find so important. And when I'm thinking about my work, I do a lot of pieces in academic environments. And I just love that young people will see my work and that it might inspire them. And I've had so many people say, oh, I saw your show and I decided immediately I wanted to be a programmer and do that, or I wanted to be an artist. So it's interesting how after years and years of doing this, you inspire other people. And I think that's like the kind of highest calling of what you can do, to open doors and help people get access to these things, because I think the world needs much more art. And I think there's a huge amount to do, and we have accessibility of these tools. We can take them and make them into what we want them to be for one another. And I think that's something that's really important.
Yeah. I love that you really touched on community, because I agree with you 1,000% that when you surround yourself with the right people, the right community, the right messages, the right opportunities, I mean, you can scale much quicker. And so that's what we're trying to do with this podcast, is kind of connect artists or creative thinkers with people who have achieved this level of success that maybe they're hoping to one day. So thank you for sharing, your story here.